What is going on, everyone? Good afternoon. Happy NBA trade deadline day. Sorry we're a few minutes late here as just the flurry of moves continue to hit up until the 3 p.m. Eastern deadline. Been tons of movement. My gosh, I feel like typically in past years, I always expect a lot to go down, a lot of meaningful stuff, and we are left short. But this year, that is not the case. I came in with some lower expectations, and man, have there been
Mhm.
a flurry of moves. And with me today to talk through it all is the GOAT, Mike Gallagher. How you doing today, Mike? And how's it feel processing all of these moves that are going down?
Yeah, pretty good, man. Not a lot of big swings. Dejounte, the cover boy for the show, he's still staying put. Surprised Bruce Brown, Gary Trent didn't get traded. Was looking to see Grady Dick get cleared out. Didn't happen. Utah didn't fully unload with Chris Dunn. Maybe we see some more stuff move here, but yeah, a lot of not the biggest trade deadline, but some fun little trades to talk through. Certainly, the Knicks fans will be quite happy with the day today.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in on what the Knicks did. They certainly, I think, kind of had the two biggest acquisitions in terms of what it means for them. There's been some minor deals all over the place. The Mavs are kind of up there. The 76ers and Pacers have made some decent moves, but the Knicks certainly seem to kind of have gone, quite a bit in here with the OG Anunoby deal in recent weeks. And then now today they acquired Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks from the Pistons in exchange for Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 second-round picks. So, this trade, Bojan and Burks are both wing scorers primarily, great shooters, knockdown shooters, both of them. And Burks has played under Tibbs before, so he kind of knows what he's getting there, some familiarity. And then Bojan, a veteran of the league, finally back on a contending team after spending the last few years in the dumps of Detroit. So pretty exciting trade all around here. Mike, what are your initial thoughts? And do you think this is as good of a trade for the Knicks as kind of the public is making it out to be?
I think so. They didn't really give up too much here. The Pistons were obviously rebuilding. I think they really took advantage. The way it was interesting how this news came. We got the Alec Burke stuff, and then we got Quentin Grimes, and we're like, "What's
Mm-hmm.
going on here?" And Gary was like, "Okay, Boyan's got to be coming here," and he was right. Shout out to Gary. Hope he pops on here pretty soon. But yeah, my first take was I was doing the depth charts here, and what a difference 20 minutes makes because it looked pretty bad. I had like Daquan Jeffries as like a backup. He wouldn't have been in the rotation, but just the way the positions worked out. But now that even without Julius Randle, they go too deep everywhere. They got Brunson and Deuce handling the ones. I expect Dante DiVincenzo to start with Alec Burks behind him as kind of their main six man, probably going to close a decent bit. OG, when he's back, should mention he's probably out until the All Star break, so they can kind of weather the storm. They'll still run a pretty good 9 man. Alec Burks will play some 3. Boyan, Precious has shown he's a capable 4. And then, he could play some 5 too. So Precious is somewhat versatility there could boost them. And then Hartenstein, we know, will play a lot. So are we going to project 39 minutes for Brunson anymore? We'll see. But yeah, pretty good. I don't think this is like a hey, they're championship or bust. But really, considering they don't have the Giannis's, the Jokers, those as great as Brunson is, he's not that level of star. So really, about as best as they could have done. And again, it didn't really cut. They didn't give up all that much. So really about as good. You got to give them an A+ for how they performed on today.
Yeah, I really like it for them. I think Bojan Bogdanovic has been one of the more underrated players in the NBA just for what he provides in the modern NBA with his ability to space the floor. And he's also big, not necessarily seen as a defender. Like I know Knicks fans are a little bit
Mhm.
reluctant to see Quentin Grimes go just because of the intensity he brings on the defensive end. And being able to clamp opposing guards is obviously a big asset to have, especially going into the playoffs. So sorry to see him go, but you get two proven scorers and shot makers and Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic, which is kind of what you need. Josh Hart, I think, can step into the Grimes role a little bit and picking up
Mhm.
main defensive pieces when he's out there, similar with Dante DiVincenzo. I do think this probably cuts down Miles McBride's role quite a bit, which is tough to see from a fellow Cincinnati guy. Went to rival high school, did Miles McBride, so it's been fun seeing him play. But overall, yeah, I think this is a great trade for the Knicks, and as they continue to climb the Eastern Conference standings, the Knicks still have a great shot at the 2 or 3 seed with the Bucks slipping a little bit. The Knicks are currently tied record wise with the Bucks, and we've kind of gotten this update on OG Anunoby that this elbow injury might linger a little bit more. So certainly some reinforcements for that, as well as as they head into the playoff run. Obviously Julius Randle out for a little bit as well, so it's just some great depth here, I think, for the Knicks, and they continue to build, a solid roster as the season goes along. So definitely like this trade a lot for the Knicks.
Great one.
Anything
And then,
else? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, fantasy value wise, I think that Brunson should remain unchanged. I think Boyan should be pretty good. Maybe about the same. Minutes are going to not be as strong. Dante's usage comes down. It's kind of like I think Brunson's unaffected. Precious's ceiling comes way, way down. We've seen him playing 40. So a guy that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were counting on in fantasy, he's kind of going to come down now. He's got actual people to compete for him on the minutes front. I don't think Hartenstein's really affected. So yeah, not too much fantasy movement. Dante kind of the loser. I think OG's unaffected. Hart a pretty big loser here because he was playing a ton as we waited for Randall. So now I think Hart's kind of a super sub. So he's probably the biggest loser here from like a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I do think Dante's uh, minute ceiling is cut down a little bit, and also his role we've seen his 3-point volume absolutely skyrocket, especially of late. So I think that'll probably calm down a little bit as Burks and Bojan can fulfill that role as well, and put Dante potentially more on ball for them. And I think fantasy wise, I'll be interested to see once Randall comes back if Tibbs finally does decide to play a little bit smaller with potentially Precious as the backup 5 or Randall as the backup 5 to get more minutes for all these wings, because once OG and Randall are back, they're going to feel somewhat of a squeeze in the front court with all the talent that they have now. So certainly interested down the road once they do get fully healthy, how that shakes out. But I think your fantasy, winners and losers makes sense to me right now. Let's head over to another Eastern Conference team where there's been a ton of movement. And that's with the 76ers. We've had trades just come in right up until the deadline where they traded Jaden Springer to the Celtics for a 2nd-round pick, but that's not really the important stuff here. Probably the biggest one is acquiring Buddy Hield from the Pacers in exchange for Marcus Morris, Furkan Korkmaz, and 3 second-round picks. Obviously, the Sixers want to surround Joel Embiid with as much shooting as possible, and Buddy Hield is probably the top candidate on the market to do that. How do you think this trade goes down for the Sixers, and do you think it's a good move for them?
It's a little weird. My first take was, Melton better be back pretty quick. They're getting rid of we saw Jaden Springer had his best defensive game of his career last night. He was really good on Stephen Curry, despite how the Warriors kind of roasted them, but it wasn't Jaden Springer's fault. So that was a sneaky pickup. We'll talk about that later on the Boston side. Yeah, Buddy Hield's pretty good. Think that it makes sense. More shooting around Embiid didn't cost them too much overall. So I think that's fine. It's just a little odd to see them get rid of so much on-ball defense and bring in really no one to replace him. So I think that's kind of a tell to me that D'Anthony Melton hopefully is coming back pretty soon. They didn't get all the way off some players. There was some reporting that they were going to get off Covington, KJ Martin, and those guys. So curious to see how that shakes out. But I think the Sixers are feeling okay. Not definitely. I thought they had a bigger swing going here when I saw that Springer thing go down. Really surprised they didn't pick up Andre Drummond. We saw Paul Reed yesterday. Got cut out early, man. Like he was hurt. We had an over on him. He was terrible. They couldn't hit him on the roll. He kept making defensive mistakes on switches against Stephanos, against guys sneaking past him, Kuminga, etc. So if you have Paul Reed bags and best ball, you're probably feeling pretty good that they couldn't sort that up. There's some buyout risk, but I think most of the big buyout candidates are going to be mostly wings and backcourt players. So we do have to see if the Kyle Lowry thing's coming, which feels like is a lock. But Kyle Lowry doesn't address the on-ball defense either. So I thought this was a fine deadline. I had bigger aspirations for them, honestly, with the picks that they had, with all the expirings they had. They had a lot of ability to make a pretty big move, and getting Buddy Hield's fine. But I don't know. I think it was a mild disappointment for me.
Yeah, I think this was an interesting trade deadline. I was very intrigued to see what the Sixers were going to do, because obviously they're walking this fine line with the Joel Embiid injury. The Sixers aren't going anywhere without Joel Embiid, and he's out. It sounds like minimum 4 to 6 weeks with this meniscus surgery. So, and even when he does come back, who knows how many minutes he's going to be able to play and how healthy. And so this Buddy Hield trade surprises me a little bit, just because he's on an expiring deal. They won't have him past the end of this season. So to give up some assets, not much, but the Furkan Korkmaz trade demands finally get met, and he's out of there. But I don't necessarily know what this signals for the 76ers. Obviously, Daryl Morey kind of always in the business of making moves and is willing to shake up a roster, maybe, as much as any GM in the league. So I'm not necessarily surprised by the activity, but certainly the way they went about it, I think, is interesting. And they traded Patrick Beverley to the Bucks for
Yeah.
campaign and a second round pick, which I don't necessarily understand. I would think Beverley is a much more valuable asset to the Sixers at this point. But it certainly signals, and Woj tweeted this as well, that with their trade of Daniel House to the Pistons and this Beverly trade and Jaden Springer trade, that they are opening up cap space for the buyout market, which is, been heavily linked to Kyle Lowry. So it, as you mentioned, seems almost like a guarantee that Kyle Lowry is going to end up with the 76ers, but just given their team needs and kind of what's going on there, I don't think it's a very good deadline for the Sixers. Yeah. Honestly, I don't think this really helped their team very much. And again, just with the Embiid news and situation hanging over their head, I really don't think this does much for them at all. So I think, even though there's a lot of transactions, nothing really needle moving in my opinion.
Yep, I agree. Fantasy
Cool.
wise,
Right.
Not really. Buddy Hield, you could drop him. We could hang on to him now until Melton comes back. And then there's not really too much movement here. Maxi's going to play a ton. Maxi just has to get cooked. They are really sending doubles to him out the wazoo. So he's going to have some eggs to lay. But the role is going to be so big here. Tobias and Oubre has been horrendous. Oubri's been so bad. I was surprised they didn't address anything there. So, yeah, we'll see. Definitely they get the buyout market. But, bottom line, not too much movement. But the headline here is Paul Reed, I think, is assuming he could play better. He's got a path to a pretty strong finish in best ball and season long.
Yep, agreed on all those fronts. All right, let's head to the Dallas Mavericks, which made some interesting moves today. I mean, they're obviously in the Luka Doncic window here, where they're trying to maximize their title contention. They're just playoff runs and trying to get as much as they can out of the Luka Doncic era in Dallas. And we've seen them make moves over the past few seasons. Obviously, trading for Kristaps Porzingis a couple years ago, and then they acquired Kyrie, and have had a lot of shuffling here alongside Luka. And today added another deal to that piece, or that puzzle, which is they acquired PJ Washington from the Charlotte Hornets in exchange for Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a 2027 first round pick. So quite a bit to give up here for PJ Washington. They also acquired Daniel Gafford for Rashawn Holmes and future draft compensation. And I did see some tweets that Dallas was still looking for the draft compensation that Washington was wanting in this deal. So I don't know if that deal is 100% official yet, but they acquire two pieces to the front court here in PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. What are your initial reactions to these trades for Dallas, and how do you think it shakes out the rest of the way for their rotation?
I like it. Aggressive, getting off Grant Williams that quick. Certainly, I thought that contract was pretty bad. He had to eat a 2027 first with top tier protection. Hopefully Luka's good. Hopefully Luka stays healthy for that year. Not to be a bad pick. But I thought it was pretty good. I thought PJ Washington fits them. Gives you some size, some shooting. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then the other thing is, this is a nice 10-man. When they get Dante Exum back, Luka, Dante behind him, Kyrie, Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, Derek Jones Jr. Not sure who's going to start there. PJ starting over Maxi Kleber, and then Derek Lively Gafford, your classic rim running center to cover the 48. Gafford, really big fantasy loser here. He's like almost droppable, at least until Lively's out. You could ride him, but his value, they can't play him together. And obviously Derek Lively's a really good player. So I think it's pretty solid. I think PJ Washington value is going to be interesting. Someone I think is worth the flyer on, just because players could really thrive next to Luka, and maybe he can kind of ice Maxi Kleber, the toe dislocation. They're going to play small, so it could kind of go both ways for PJ. But I thought this was a good trade for them. Certainly, I thought not a needle mover, but I thought they got better today, and only costing a 2027 to get off that bad Grant money, I thought was worth it to me.
Yeah, I like this move in terms of Gafford for them. I think he pairs really well with Luka, just in terms of being a big role man for them that Luka can throw up lobs to. Relatively decent defensively in terms of blocking shots. Not, we love attacking fantasy assets against Daniel Gafford just because of his he likes to give up a lot of stuff around the rim, but is aggressive with blocking as well. And I think he will slot in nicely behind Derek Lively. I would expect Derek Lively to still start once he returns from this nasal fracture, and then Gafford likely pick up most of the backup center minutes. And PJ Washington is certainly someone that has played a lot of small ball center for the Hornets, and we know that kid likes to go small there. So I think this really hurt. I think Dwight Powell is pretty much donezo, especially once Lively's back. He probably won't sniff any minutes. Mm-hmm. And then, the PJ Washington move, I kind of like, just because, he adds probably the best shooting element that they've had, and at that power forward position next to Luka. Derek Jones Jr., I think a big loser in this deal as well. He'll probably shift more to the 3, but certainly, with Grant Williams gone, like we were initially like, okay, Derek Jones Jr. is going to pick up minutes, but not so fast with the acquisition of PJ Washington. So I do think this helps, tighten up the rotation. We know Kidd has played things pretty tightly. So interested to see how this plays out. Have some questions here about, do you think Lively will continue to start over Gafford when he comes back?
I'd be shocked, man. I'd be shocked if Gafford starts over Lively assuming when Lively comes back healthy. I would say 3% chance, maybe lower. Like, I would be shocked. I'd be totally shocked. Derek Lively is good. Daniel Gafford is not. He is a stat stuffer. He does not help winning. I said this for years. Yeah. If you have him on fantasy, hold him till Lively comes back, and I'd be surprised if he plays like when Lively's full. I think Gafford plays like 18, 17 minutes, so it's gonna be hard to produce there.
Yeah, that checks out to me.
Maybe not even, that might even be high. That might even be high because they're gonna run small. They like Maxey at the 5. Like he's
for sure
really dead.
Yeah, they're very comfortable playing Kleba at the 5, and I think PJ will kind of fill a similar role to what Kleba's been. So certainly in smaller matchups, I think Gafford and Lively probably project for maybe mid-30s minutes at the best. And yeah, it probably does hurt Lively's upside a little bit here, just in terms of minutes in production and how much he's out there on the court, adding some more legit competition. I certainly, even though we don't love Gafford as a player, I think certainly a little more athletic and brings a little bit more to the table than Dwight Powell did in terms of competition for Lively.
Yeah, and who else is the surprise? The Wizards didn't do a little bit more, but man, who's a big loser? The rim runners against the Wizards. The Wizards rim defense. Maybe it won't be as bad with Daniel Gafford out of there now.
I don't know. They have Marvin Bagley there, man, in the center position.
Better than Gafford is. Rim protection,
man. If Bagley's better than anyone, that's a glaring red flag right there.
Should mention, I didn't have Washington in the rundown. Let's just hit them while we're here. Yeah, Bagley's a massive winner here for the deadline. He is wheels up all the way. Rashawn Holmes will eat into him a little bit, but we saw that first game. We had a Marvin Bagley over, and I was like, hey, this guy's playing 30 plus, and he plays 38 that Knicks game. So Bagley's probably one of the biggest winners on the day. He's going to get all he can eat. Bad defense, their defense is worse than their offense, to put it that way. So he's in a huge spot here. He could be, kind of a league winner. I don't expect Rashawn Holmes to push him.
Sounds good. Yeah, definitely notable for the home stretch here in season-long leagues. Bagley should be a stat stuffer. And I will just kind of wrap it up by saying, man, I'm shocked that Seth Curry did not work out at all with the Mavs. I thought he would be a great floor spacer, just, playing along Luka. I see Luka similar to LeBron, where, you just want to surround him with shooters to open up the floor and let him go to work. So I'm surprised that his reign in Dallas was not impactful at all. I thought that was a good offseason move by them. So a little bummed to see that did not work out. All right, let's head to one of their biggest rivals in the Western Conference, who we've seen a matchup in the playoffs with last season. And there's a budding rivalry between, and that's the Phoenix Suns. They made some pretty impactful moves, I think. Well, at least one strong move that I think both of us are in agreement in liking, and that is they acquired Royce O'Neal from the Nets, who I think will slot in perfectly into the rotation as someone who does not necessarily need the ball, but is a solid connector on offense and can also knock down shots, has playoff experience, as a veteran that should fit in nicely with this team. And then they also acquired David Roddy from the Grizzlies. Not sure how Roddy will necessarily slot into this rotation, if at all, right away. So what are your initial thoughts on the Suns and their deadline moves?
Yeah, there was rumors about Royce O'Neal for weeks. That was the guy they wanted. They knew they couldn't. Once Miles Bridges came off the table, that was it. That was the move. Nobody outbid them, and they got him. So, kind of really the best they could have done. So I thought it wasn't really the best. It's really the best they could have done, within reason. So, they're not going to be able. They're over the second apron, so they're not going to be able to go after the Lowry, Spencer Dinwiddie's. They have to go like a little bit cheaper there. So yeah, I think that they got enough wing depth. You and I differ a little bit. You thought they were going to be more in the point guard. I thought they needed the wing defense. So I like this Royce O'Neal pickup. Got some floor spacing, got a little bit of handling, a little bit of a connector action. So I'm good with him. And then, yeah, Roddy's fine. We'll see if he can maybe play better with some, better offensive players. At least he's got a big body, can play 3-4. I think that's an area that helps. We know we've seen KBD, Kogi. He could play more of a 2 now. So, yeah, really nice rotation for them. Does cut down the Bull buzz. We saw Bull really kind of come up. Talked about him on the injury show. So he's lost a little bit of his luster as like a high upside potential guy if, someone missed time.
Definitely. Yeah. I do think they're still likely to get a point guard in the buyout market just to help run some sets offensively a little bit, but obviously so much offensive firepower. Maybe they internally feel okay. I just feel like kind of the public sentiment and opinion is that they could use some point guard help, but maybe the Suns are adamant that they don't and will stand pat just, with the absolute elite offensive playmakers they already have. So kind of interested to see how it plays out, but we hit on the injury show a little bit ago that they trim the fat from their rotation as well. So we should see a bit of a tighter rotation here for the Suns moving forward as they head, towards the playoff push. And it was funny. I was doing baselines today. I noticed that Bradley Beal has played the most minutes for the Suns since January 1st. So Beal has finally, been able to stay healthy and be in their rotation. So the Suns, I think, are adding a bit of continuity here and getting Royce O'Neal in the picture, I think is, again, a great move for them. Just how he'll fit rotationally.
For sure.
Cool. All right, let's head to, we kind of touched on the Hornets a little bit because they've been dishing out a lot, but the Hornets have been active here. They obviously sent PJ Washington away, and then they also traded Gordon Hayward to the Thunder. Gordon Hayward, who, man, his Charlotte run was pretty rough, just injury filled after that massive contract and fallout kind of from Boston post that severe ankle injury. And man, really hope that Hayward can somewhat stay healthy, but he gets shipped to the Thunder here in exchange for Trey Mann, Davis Bertans, Masaliye Micic, and I think a future first-round pick as well goes to the Hornets. So kind of a big deal here for Gordon Hayward, who, we haven't seen much this season. What are your thoughts here on Hayward and his potential impact for the Thunder?
Yeah, I mean, pretty solid. They pick up a couple nice firsts, and when they get rid of Rozier and this one, I don't love getting Grant Williams and having that money on the books, but this team's not going to be good for a really long time. So it's kind of a tough scene for LaMelo. Curious to see if he gets shut down, given the way they added Trey Mann. And it was Shams' tweet was hilarious when he was like, "Oh, he's 2021 promising young guard." Like, all right, buddy, we know who gave you that the source there. But yeah, Trey Mann's a pickup. If you play in a deep league, this guy can fill it up. We saw what he did down the stretch when they were sitting guys out. He can get a bucket. He's terrible for winning. But I mean, they're starting Ish Smith. They're starting Cody Martin at the point guard spot. There's kind of a lot to like here. So Trey Mann's worth a flyer to me if you play in a deeper fantasy league. Curious to see what his lines look like. I think he's going to start over Micic because I don't think Micic really has an upside to be a better player. Oh no, my 20. We don't usually do shows at this time, so my alarm went off. Yeah. So that covers that. So, and then the other headline here obviously is Brandon Miller's wheels up. We've seen him just absolutely crush. Miles Bridges staying put. That's great for his fantasy value. I have him on my 30-man team. I was hoping he was going to stay because he's playing extremely well. Back-to-back 40 balls. So he's got a really, really strong ceiling the rest of the way. I don't think Grant Williams is going to affect him. Curious to see if Grant Williams cuts into Nick Richards a little bit as we still wait for Mark Williams to come back here. Man, that is just quite odd to see Mark Williams out for so long. But yeah, Brandon Miller, Miles, pretty clear winners. Nick Richards, mild loser. Trey Mann, huge winner to me from going from a guy wasn't owned in he was actually owned in my 30-man. But yeah, guy I would pick up in season long, and I think he could play a pretty good bet. I think the Hornets will give him a shot, at least until LaMelo's back. If LaMelo's back.
Yeah, it's interesting you have him up top there as a potential starting point guard because we've seen Steve Clifford go a lot of different ways at that point guard position with Ish Smith, with Bryce McGowan's, Cody Martin, as you mentioned, has played some points. So maybe some potential stability if they do roll with Trey Mann. And then I'm interested to see how the front court plays out too, because PJ Washington played such a big role for them in the front court. You mentioned, this is Miles Bridges staying put is great for his fantasy value. I think that's certainly the case. And then I would imagine they use Grant Williams in somewhat of the PJ role, but he's certainly not the offensive player that PJ is. So we could potentially get, maybe they want, a longer look at Nathan Mensah while Mark Williams is out. I kind of doubt it, but we should see Charlotte still continue to play pretty small here. I think maybe even Miles get some backup center minutes potentially, depending on how this all shakes out. So, and then we see Davis Bertans there. Just I cannot believe the contract that Bertans got a few years ago, and he's going to make close to $100 million off NBA salaries, which is pretty wild. Shout out for Bertans for gaming the system there. But yeah, I mean, Charlotte, not necessarily interesting from the NBA perspective, but certainly in fantasy, a team we love to attack. And now, some new pieces there to see how it plays out.
Yeah. And some questions on Cody Martin. If he's on waivers, I mean, fine. He shot the lights out yesterday, but I don't think the role is going to be that great. I think he's like, just because they're adding handling and so much of it, 2 players who can handle, that role going away for him really hurts. So he's, again, a guy worth having on your team for fantasy, but I would honestly rather have Trey for the upside, depending on how deep your league is. Like if you play where you're like counting on Cody Martin to be reliable, sure. But, if he's on the end of the bench stash, I would rather have like Trey.
Yeah, his handling role has really expanded without Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball. So if that's taken away, then it's not going to be too much going on for Cody Martin because he's not, a high volume scorer or anything along those lines. All right, let's head to another Eastern Conference team and kind of a fringe move here for the Bucks, but one I think is a strong one for their playoff prospects and just kind of fit and makeup of the team chemistry. And that's they acquired Patrick Beverley in exchange for Cameron Payne and a 2nd round pick. Again, this trade surprised me from the 76ers perspective, and I like it a lot from the Bucks perspective with what Bev adds to this team. Obviously a team that's been searching for defensive prowess and, intensity all season. That's in large part why they fired Adrian Griffin and hired Doc Rivers. So I think this is another move in that direction to try and shore up the defense. Mike, what do you make of the Patrick Beverley acquisition for the Bucks?
Yeah, part of the reason why we kind of poo-pooed the Sixers, like you needed on-ball defense, and you gave one of your on-ball defenders to one of your main competitors, in which they clearly need. So I thought that just the fact that they traded Beverley to Milwaukee, it was really, really confusing to me. But yeah, I love it. They didn't have much. They were pretty much out of picks besides like valuable picks. So picking him up for a second, campaign's useless. So yeah, I thought this is great. I think that this will affect Malik Beasley. I think Malik Beasley is going to be way less likely to close now. So he's a pretty big loser to me. He's still fine, but his upside comes way, way, way down because I think Dame and Patrick Beverley can play next to each other more depending on the matchup. And then other than that, nobody's really affected. Obviously, Robin Lopez going away. Brooke Lopez brings one family member in and then loses another one on his team. So, yeah, other than that, pretty straightforward. This obviously doesn't affect Dame. It'll affect Connaughton a little bit too, but you're not counting on him. Jay Crowder is pretty much secure. So, really just affecting Malik Beasley. Don't really think Beverly's a pickup, at least while assuming Dame's like day to day.
Yeah, I absolutely love this trade for the Bucks. I mean, the fact that you can swap Cameron Payne for Patrick Beverley just by including a 2nd round pick, I think is an absolute steal. So I love this move for the Bucks, even though I'm rooting for the Cavs to hold on to that 2 seed. I think this is a strong move for Milwaukee, no doubt. But certainly continue to add on the olds to this Milwaukee team. There's been some funny stuff about Doc, not playing anyone under the age of 27. For like his first 3 games. I think AJ Green got in there to alleviate that fact. But yeah, I think Doc here going with the trusty vets and Pat Bev, certainly one that's great for team chemistry.
Yeah, and shout out Patrick Beverley and his podcast breaking the news of his own trade. That was hilarious.
Yeah, I love that. The player empowerment days are fully here and in full force. Okay, let's head to another kind of backup point guard trade that was done yesterday, and that is the Minnesota Timberwolves acquiring Monty Morris from the Pistons in exchange for Shake Milton, Troy Brown Jr., and a 2nd round pick. This is one of many moves for the Pistons, but I think a solid one for Minnesota, a team, that Chris Finch has blasted their immaturity all season. Like when Mike Conley is off the court, they've really struggled to run a cohesive offense. So I think this Monty Morris deal kind of, fits that bill and hopefully all of the minutes, point guard minutes between Mike Conley and Monty Morris, there's going to be one of them out there at all times. I would kind of expect. Is that your read on the situation as well? And just kind of your overarching thoughts on this Monty Morris to the Wolves trade?
Mostly. I think that depending on the matchup, they might bring Nickeil Alexander-Walker in there for some defense. McLaughlin's been pretty steady, but I think Monty Morris is like a better version of Jordan McLaughlin, kind of a table setter, runs the offense, and just a teeny tiny bit better defender. That's not saying Monte's not a good defender, but Jordan McLaughlin's really, really bad. So yeah, just thought it was a great trade. They had a clear need for backup point guard, and they got it. So yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah, and I was surprised to see Monty Morris only 28 years old. I felt like he has been in the league forever. And I thought he was going to be like early 30s, but still 28 for Monty. So, a lot of tread left on the tires. Hasn't been very active at all this year for Detroit, but interesting move for Monty for sure.
Mhm.
I like the addition there as a vet point guard. We know he likes to control the ball. You give him the best nickname of all time. I think the count of Monte Assisto, which Assistio, which I think is great for his ability to distribute without turning the ball over. So I think a good pickup for the Wolves here as they try and be a more mature and put together team down the stretch.
Tank time.
Yeah. Okay, so let's transition. You want to hit the Pistons or the Jazz first in terms of kind of teams that are making tons of moves?
Let's do Pistons. This is the fun one.
Cool.
Extra fun
Yeah.
one.
So we'll go from that Monty Morris deal. So they acquired, as I mentioned, Shake Milton and Troy Brown Jr. in that deal. Both are still, have not been released by the Pistons, so we expect them to remain on the roster. The Pistons also acquired Simone Fontecchio from the Jazz. They waived Killian Hayes. They traded, Bojan and Alec Burks to the Knicks. So, man, just all sorts of player movement here for the Pistons. I'll let you take it away and kind of go in any direction you want here with Detroit.
Yeah, just still tilting the Killian under that we lost yesterday. Just God, I can't. That's one of the worst runouts we've had. Just from the stacking bad runouts. But I digress.
The literal kill shot in all facets
Yeah.
for us for Killian has his Pistons career. It's just wild.
Yeah. Well played. Yeah, this is not really. Killian was dead anyways. He was going to be a DMPCD, but Alec Burks going away. You're basically swapping minutes out for, I would say, him and Quentin Grimes. So I don't think anything changes too much from a minutes perspective there. In the backcourt, obviously you take Boyan out, and this should be wheels up for Asar Thompson. We'll see. I don't did the Pistons file? I haven't checked that yet. For Asar, he should play a ton. He'll play a little 4. We know he could rebound pretty well. He was actually lined at plus 480 for a double-double yesterday. And I almost took that because he could really board. I think he could get some of the non-Durans to rebound there too. So, huge winner for Asar Thompson. I don't think Simone Fontecchio will impact him too much there. Stewart waiting for him to come back. They'll probably run pretty small. I think if we wait for Stewart and we get Fontecchio in there, Stewart's, I think, another week or so for him to return. So I think that they'll probably start until they get Stewart back of Cade, Jaden, Asar, Fontecchio, and they might even start Quentin Grimes at the 3 as well, and then bring Fontecchio off the bench. So we're kind of waiting to see there. But Asar is really the big fantasy winner here, one of the bigger ones of the day for sure.
Nice. Yeah. So many moving pieces here for Detroit. And this is a team that we've had difficulty projecting just with the unpredictability of Monty Williams rotations throughout the season. So hopefully we don't get messed with too much, but I'm sure there will be some nights where we're a little off on this rotation just with how many bodies they have to potentially mix in. I'm interested to see if they play Shake Milton at all, or if they continue to let Marcus Sasser run in that backup point guard role. I'd certainly like to see that given to Sasser, but maybe Shake eats in there a little bit. But yeah, hopefully, this opens the door for Jaden Ivey's development, Asar Thompson's development, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren. Like all these guys just need as many minutes as possible. So hopefully, I'm a little surprised that Gallinari and Muscala did not get moved to two vets that really have no business getting minutes for the Pistons this season. So hopefully they're eventually cut out to, emphasize the development of these young guys, but certainly a lot of options here for Detroit.
Yeah. Curious if there's any buyout on Daniel Gallinari or anything like that here to, push their youth movement. They picked up, Troy Brown, those guys. So they might clear out some more minutes, but yeah, definitely Marcus Sasser. We saw him overlap with Killian a pretty good bit yesterday. Adding Quentin Grimes could cut him down a little bit. He's going to have a tough time having value while Cade's healthy, but we know Cade's had some health issues here. So, yeah, it would be, deeply pick up Marcus Sasser, stash, and then, if you ever saw Cade get hurt, like run to the waiver wire and pick up Marcus Sasser.
Yep, makes sense. All right, let's head to the Utah Jazz then, who not nearly as many moves as Detroit, but we're involved with one in Detroit, sending Fontecchio there. So the Jazz have. We got Gary popping on here. We'll add him and get his next thoughts.
Yeah.
Hey, I just needed to come in and say hello. I'm a very happy man today. Man, not the most exciting deadline ever, except unless you're a Knicks fan. So we're feeling good. How are we doing, fellas?
Doing good, man. How are you feeling? How would you rate your Knicks trades today?
Well, my wife rates it an A+. She's really excited to get Alec Burks back. I was trying to get her to make an appearance on the show. I mean, she's the reason that I couldn't hop on until now. She had a call in the same room, but she's excited. Zachary's excited. So the whole Hartman clan's excited. Yeah, no, I mean, I give it an A. I can't go A+ because defensively, certainly some concerns, from a Boyan perspective, especially in the regular season, we're gonna need him to play a lot of minutes in the short term. So he's slow, but he'll try, he'll be in the right places, I think. So hopefully it doesn't hinder things too much, but man, they needed this in the worst way. They needed more offense. They needed more creation. They needed the depth with all the injuries right now. So it really just makes a ton of sense. Very, very excited over here. But yeah, fun day for sure.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Any other quick takeaway? How long we got you? Any other quick takeaways you want to?
No, you got me for whatever. I'm good to hang. I feel bad coming in and screwing up your guys' flow at this point. But no, great. I mean, crazy. A bunch of on the margins moves today. I was at the gym running, and I just see like Patrick Beverley breaking his own trade, and I don't even know what's happening. But it's been a fun day. Where are we right now? We're talking Utah.
Utah.
We were just heading to Utah. Talk about most interesting team in the league, of course.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, just you mentioned a lot of fringe moves here, and Utah is kind of king of those fringe moves as they let go Simon Fontecchio. They traded away Ochai Agbaji and Kelly Olynyk to the Raptors, which was kind of a strange deal from the Toronto side, but it certainly seems like Utah here is clearing out minutes to promote up Taylor Hendricks and get him some run, potentially Bryce Sensabaugh, Luka Samanic. They also have there in the front court, and just kind of emptying out some bodies for this rotation. So Mike, what are your top fantasy takeaways? Obviously, the Jazz aren't necessarily competing for a championship or anything super meaningful this year. So I think probably the fantasy fallout is what we're most interested in here. How do you see this playing out for Utah?
Yeah, I wanted to see a little more guys clear out for Taylor Hendricks. So the big thing we'll be watching tonight is who starts. If they start John Collins at the 5 and they keep Walker Kessler behind him, that means they're going to play Hendricks a pretty good bit. I wouldn't be surprised if Hendricks makes a run and starts. Just because we saw when Laurie was hurt, they were really talking him up to play. So I think that's something I'm going to watch. So I think Taylor Hendricks isn't really like a pickup yet. I wanted to see Chris Dunn get traded to free up my guy Keontae George. That didn't happen. So, it pushed guys a little bit to more value. But, this helps Walker Kessler a little bit. I think Walker Kessler's minute ceiling is a little bit stronger. They can run him more Collins just because you're taking away Olynyk. So he's a pretty big beneficiary. Collins, I think, wins a little bit. Laurie unaffected. But, I wanted to see a full-on get rid of everyone here, but didn't quite go there. Colin Sexton's still on the team, so not like major value opening up in this spot.
Yeah, everything, all the deals here, just out of the front court. So I think the back court's still pretty loaded. In terms of fantasy and DFS, do you guys think you'll be targeting? Like, do you think Keontae is going to overlap a bit more with Sexton, or how do you see this playing out in the back court? I can toss that to you, Gary, and kind of what your initial thoughts are, just fantasy wise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think too much will change unless they just get to the point like they did last year post-deadline where they prioritize youth, realize, hey, we had a nice little run in the middle of the season and this isn't happening. So let's give the young guys a shot, which is kind of what the front court moves were about, and giving, clearing up some space for Hendricks. I think George is still kind of blocked here. I wish, like Mike, there were two teams I was really hoping would make some consolidation trades, the Jazz and the Magic, because the Magic I just think have too many bodies too. But Utah did it like kind of half-assed, because I wish they would at least have gotten rid of Sexton or Clarkson. I think Clarkson, the asking price was kind of high there. But no, I think as the season, like when we get into March and, post deadline, post All-Star break and stuff, I think Keontae will start seeing some minutes at the expense of Clarkson and things like that. And maybe Dunn as well, who I guess hangs around here after his name was floating around late in the day too. But yeah, I mean, for now, I would imagine it's going to be a little bit more of the same, maybe a little bit more overlap for Keontae.
Yeah, and then we'll see. Again, I'm keeping an eye out on the starting lineup, because if they do keep Collins as a 5, that's going to open up a lot of forward minutes. So yeah, keep an eye. Maybe I don't think they're going to go to Bryce Sensabaugh as like a small ball stuff. So yeah, they didn't go all the way in. So nobody.
Yeah, I mean, they
really
could do some
screamed.
3-guard stuff, I guess, against smaller teams.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So.
Yep, they do that
Yeah,
sometimes to
definitely.
close.
Yep.
All right, let's switch over to Toronto, who the Utah did a trade with, sending Agbaji and Kelly Olynyk to. And then the Raptors also acquired Spencer Dinwiddie from the Nets in exchange for Dennis Schroeder, and then proceeded to waive Spencer Dinwiddie. And Toronto also kept Bruce Brown. So kind of an interesting deadline here from Toronto. They've been super active this whole trade season, a lot going on here. Mike, what are your initial thoughts on Toronto and how they handled this deadline? Any initial thoughts on Spencer Dinwiddie and kind of what his waiving opens up in the backcourt here for Toronto with Dennis Schroeder now out of the picture for Toronto?
So their GM's talking right now, and they said it's, quote, still TBD on Gary Trent, not Hartman. But we're watching him grow up with this group. So they want to take this extra time and evaluate him. Why? I mean, I think you got all you need to see out of Gary Trent. So I don't know. I thought they should have traded him. And I thought when they traded for Ochai Agbaji that they were basically making a move before the move, before you got off Bruce Brown, before you got off Gary Trent. That way you can kind of still have a competent wing while you just unload those guys and get picks. So I thought that was pretty crappy. And then, getting off Dennis Schroeder's contract next year. Cool. I thought that contract was a little too much, so I think that's fine. Don't look for the Nets. We'll get to them. But yeah, pretty underwhelming. Just not seeing a lot of value. I think IQ's really wheels up here. We'll see what they do with Bruce Brown. I just didn't get it. They should have done. They got rid of their two best pieces and they couldn't get rid of the rest. And there was a market apparently for Bruce Brown, so I thought it was pretty weird and pretty lame.
Yeah, I don't get why they didn't take something for Bruce. I mean, my only thought is, hey, they'll pick up the option and then he's even more valuable as an expiring next year, maybe. But like, if they weren't getting the value that they thought he should bring in, but in my estimation, his value mid-season with contenders plus the ability to pick up that option for a contender next year would be high. But hey, to each their own, I guess.
Yeah, it is a team option on Bruce Brown, so the Raptors can pick that up, and Woj kind of mentioned, alluded to that as well, that they'll be looking to use that asset in the offseason. Will the Raptors? Because to me, the moves, you mentioned Gary Trent. I think it signals that they're going to put the ball in Emmanuel Quickley's hands a ton. He and Scotty Barnes will continue to run the offense alongside RJ Barrett. So I think it really kind of just opens it up for those guys to continue to run the offense after their trade from Gary's beloved Knicks. So certainly, not the most exciting deadline we could have seen out of Toronto, but some interesting moves. I don't think Agbaji is, a needle mover at all. I thought even when the Cavs drafted him at the end of the lottery there, he was an older prospect. Kind of the best outcome for him was going to be a 3-and-D guy, and he hasn't really developed into that at all. And, kind of had the opportunities, and Utah has drawn starts for them throughout his 2 seasons. So I don't really see it there for him. I'm interested to see that Olynyk is there. I kind of would have thought he would be waived as well. But any final thoughts here on the Raptors, Mike, in terms of potential fantasy winners or losers?
Just IQ's kind of locked and loaded. A little disappointing. Disappointing for Grady Dick if you were stashing him, hoping for a big role. Really just a lot of disappointments. They didn't clear everybody out. I think Jakob Poeltl's generally okay. Scotty's going to be unaffected. But going back to Ochai, he couldn't beat out Chris Dunn. He couldn't beat out Fontecchio. He can't guard on ball anymore. He's a chaser defensive role wise. So I don't know. I just don't get it. I get he's got a good contract, but I don't know. Didn't make much sense to me to trade. So I didn't really like this move for them.
Yeah, a little underwhelming, but Masai Ujiri has shown over the course of his tenure in the Raptors, he typically knows, what he's doing, and it works out well for them at the end of the day. So interested to see kind of these moves are probably setting up, some future moves, and he's got a bigger plan in mind. So certainly interested to see the fallout there. Let's head over to the Nets, which, they did do a deal with and trading Dennis Schroeder for Spencer Dinwiddie. Again, Dinwiddie was waived by the Raptors, so he will not play there. But the Nets have been somewhat active, trading Dinwiddie, trading Royce O'Neal as well. So, Mike, what do you see from the Nets here in these moves and kind of this deadline for them as a whole?
Yeah, it could be a Dennis Smith Jr. season. He's played pretty well. We saw him close over Spencer Dinwiddie at times. He's capable steals guy, not a big handler or scorer guy, but I think his career is in a pretty good spot considering he was out of the league and considering he wanted to play cornerback. So yeah, definitely a guy worth picking up. We're going to talk about him a lot later. Maybe they start him. Maybe they start Schroeder. I don't know. Considering that Schroeder's on the book next year, probably maybe would have been a little aggressive there. Putting DSJ over him, we'll see. And then does Cam Thomas start at the point? We've seen him get some point guard minutes in the time, but not really a ball distributor. So I think he just makes sense as a 2. And then I think we'll see Jalen Wilson play some minutes going forward. A little disappointing they couldn't get off anybody else. Yeah, that's kind of it. We'll see Ben Simmons. Actually, Ben Simmons probably is going to start now. If I think about it. Yeah, because we know they don't really like that Claxton. So yeah, actually, I take that back. I'm going to put Ben Simmons as point guard 1. We had the comments from him. We saw them start them next to each other. So I think they're going to start Ben. So I take that back. Can we producer Luke? Can you scrub that out? Yeah, but so yeah, but I still think DSJ's minutes are pretty solid, especially in the short term. But couldn't sell off Lonnie. There was some trade. The Lakers were in on him. A couple other teams are in on him. So didn't quite sell everyone off. But yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if the Lonnie injury scared other teams off. He is on an expiring contract as well, so that was kind of a valuable asset. And with his 3-and-D skills, Lonnie is a decent asset at this point in time. And as much as exciting as Cam Thomas at the point would be for all of us involved, I'm not sure his teammates would be too happy about Jacque Vaughn making Cam Thomas the starting point guard there. Any thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets here, Gary, and their deadline?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's another team that's kind of operating with half measures, which I don't love at the deadline. I mean, if I were them, I would have gone full on in and got your picks back from the Rockets and shipped McHale and just full on rebuild. I mean, that's what I would have done. Because
I would have done McHale. McHale's good, but I would have gotten up Dorian.
Yeah, but I agree with you. McHale's a great young player who was like an awesome person to keep there and build around. But like they're so far away, in my opinion, everywhere else that they could just get their picks back and full on go in to a tank. I would have done it personally. But so either way, though,
two first Jalen Green and filler for.
Well, I think there was like a report like a month ago. They would have just reversed the trade basically, like all the stuff for Harden. They would have given them back for McHale. So I would have considered that. But whatever, regardless, even if they didn't do that, like I don't understand how you don't trade DFS as like a wing that everyone would have wanted. I know there were, they could have really traded a bunch of these guys, but I don't know. I've seen that. I have a bunch of Nets friends, and they're not happy. They're just like, we're treading water. I don't really get it. I get we don't have our own picks, so we got to try to keep competing, but they could have stockpiled more assets.
I believe it. I mean, last year, at the deadline when they made those moves and like, oh, look at these 4 big wings we have with Cam Johnson, DFS, Royce and McHale, and like we can get so many assets in return. And here we sit today, a year later, Royce O'Neal, the only one traded for like a second round pick. So pretty underwhelming, I think, just given where the Nets sit organizationally, that they weren't more active and didn't ship out. I'd be curious to know if the injuries to Finney Smith and Lonnie Walker hampered their ability to deal them at all. And, that could potentially be a factor. But yeah, I think certainly underwhelming here for the Nets. And I could see Nets fans being pretty disappointed.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
The only thing they have all the Dennises in the NBA. That's it.
Important note, no doubt.
Yep.
We'll see if they add any menaces to the roster. Okay. Otherwise, in terms of moves left on the table for us to discuss, not a whole lot going on. We kind of have some fringe moves in terms of the Celtics picking up Jaden Springer. Not quite sure where he fits into the rotation, if at all. Don't really think he would have a role for them unless there's an injury to the guards there. Just some added defensive depth in the guards and the backcourt. Memphis dumped David Roddy, but did not make a move for Luke Kennard. So he remains in Memphis. Memphis, remains pretty whole, all things considered. Only
they
giving
got some
up
pieces back from the Suns too.
Yeah. So I don't know, Mike. I'll let you take this kind of anywhere you want. Anything catch your eye on Memphis here, or any of the other teams that kind of just made moves along the fringes?
Yeah, the Grizzlies picked up Yuta Watanabe and Chimezie Metu. So as someone who's stashing Trey Jemison in my 30-man, a little sad. Chimezie Metu probably might be alive. Obviously, you need Jaren Jackson to miss, but I could see Jaren Jackson getting shut down. But they didn't get off Kennard. That was surprising. Didn't get off Conchar. That was surprising. So yeah, not quite. I guess there's no market for these guys, so I guess I get it. But yeah, if you were like my Scottie Pippen Jr. stash isn't looking good. But yeah, they're Marcus Smart will come back and kind of kill it. So all the Memphis stashes kind of went poorly.
Yeah, not a whole lot going on there. I don't think too much worthy to discuss. Let's hit on the Pacers though real quick because they made some moves, obviously acquiring Pascal Siakam at the beginning of the month. They traded away Buddy Hield, which is kind of interesting timing just with how well the Pacers have played this year. And he's, a relatively valuable rotation piece. They acquired Doug McDermott from the Spurs. They also got Furkan Korkmaz back from the Sixers. So kind of, I guess, filled that shooting role with Dougie McBuckets in a return to Indy, and then adding Korkmaz there as well. Looks like they waived Marcus Morris, so he is not going to put on a Pacer jersey at this point in time. But I'll toss this to Gary first. And the Pacers, Eastern Conference alongside your Knicks, how you feeling about their deadline and kind of all the moves that Indy has made?
Yeah, they had so many like twos and wings that I get the Buddy Hield move. I think they probably should have pulled the trigger on that like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago and gotten more. But it makes sense. And I still look at them, if healthy, as a legitimate threat, like in a 3-6 or something like that to upset whoever, whether it's your team or mine, Dank. I think it will be a live series for sure. So, yeah, Doug McDermott just seems like he belongs in a Pacers uniform. So that makes some sense to me. I think your guy Obi Toppin, Mike, I think he's kind of a loser from all of this.
He's dead. He's been dead.
Yeah, he's been dead, so that's unfortunate. But no, hopefully a little bit more room for Mathurin. Neesmith's been one of the joys of the season, and then like Ben Shepherd opens up some minutes here. We'll see if they get Korkmaz involved. It's a pretty deep, good team for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned Neesmith. He's shooting over 46% from three this season. Absolute breakout year for him. He also has played the most minutes for the Pacers since January 1st. So really coming along there as a solid wing piece for Indiana. And the first round matchup I'm hoping to see is Indiana against the Bucks. I'm hoping we kind of get like a 4 or 5 deal there, reinstigate the play-in tournament, all the drama there and all that's been going on with those two. So Mike, any big fantasy fallout here from the Pacers and kind of how you expect them to operate moving forward?
No, not really. Nembhard's role's more secure. He's not really fantasy relevant while Halliburton's out there. Neesmith a little more upside. Ben Mathurin, hoping my 25-30-1 tickets for 6-man gets him cooking a little bit. That helps him a little bit with more scoring, but yeah, not too much. I should note, I was hoping Tim Hardaway Jr. got traded to kill some of that 6-man juice. There was a lot of buzz on him, so it's the 6-man long shots were a little bit of a loser today with some of those 6-man top guys not getting traded.
For sure.
You should also note that the Buddy Hield trade worked out pretty well for the Pacers. Well, it was a Tyrese Halliburton trade, but yeah, they're all right. It all worked out for the Hield stuff.
For sure.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's wrap it up here with some trade deadline winners and losers. I think, my head's kind of spinning with all the movement, but I think we hit pretty much every deal that went down today and yesterday. So let's kind of wrap it up here with some big time winners and losers. Mike, I'll start with you on your top winner from the trade deadline.
Just give it to Gary first. Go ahead. Go let Gary talk about his Knicks first. Yeah, go for it.
Obviously I'm biased, but it seems like the national media finally agrees with all of us Knicks fans that, this is a well-run team that did things right, really, for a while now. They've held on to every first-round pick that they've had. They've drafted well and used those picks, used those players to pick up assets and to complete a team that can compete. Are they still a superstar away? Maybe, but they're maybe the deepest team in the East if healthy right now. And with Bojan and Burks coming in, at least the Burks type gives you an innings eater in the regular season that they so badly need right now. And Bojan, I don't know how much he's going to play in the playoffs, but when they need those minutes of just some bursts of offense, he'll be there. And for the regular season, it's huge. So, honestly, I don't know if there would have been a deadline move that I would have been happier about. I wasn't on the DeJounte Murray train for them. I was a Malcolm Brogdon guy, but like even that, has its limitations as far as injury and everything like that concern. And this gets them even more depth. So I think most people are in agreement the Knicks are maybe the big winner of the day.
Yep, no doubt. I don't think anyone is even close second. I guess I like that the Hornets have direction. I like seeing them at least get off contracts. They did pick up Grant, which I hate. But hey, you picked up a couple 2027 first-round picks. Not a lot of teams can say that. So I thought that they were winners. I thought they could have done a little bit better. Getting off some players. They were a little hamstrung because Miles Bridges was shooting down any trade. But I thought they were a winner. I don't really think this. I think it's more about the losers than the winners today. Are there any other kind of winners for you, Dank, besides those two? I don't think anyone's the Suns. I think the
I was
Suns
about
are
to say,
kind of winners.
The Suns were there, and then I do like the Bucks move for Pat Bev. And I don't know if they're a winner per se, but I am more interested now in the Mavs, just adding some new pieces there. I do think PJ Washington is a pretty interesting addition for them, and can probably slot, I think, next to Luka pretty well. Like I think that's a pretty exciting landing spot for PJ. So
Gafford too.
We'll
as just like a role guy. If Lively's going to have injury stuff too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I don't know what you guys think about him. Yeah, for sure. What'd you guys say about Philadelphia? Because I wasn't able to catch. So like,
we didn't like it.
I'm assuming they're going to sign Lowry, especially with
Mark Stein reported while we were talking that
seems like a lock, right? So, definitely. But it's weird stuff besides that, right? I mean, Springer seemed like a promising guy. He would make sense, especially if Embiid was healthy, especially.
Right.
But it's a weird deadline for them.
They're like new Bucks defensively. They lost all their on-ball guys, and they helped the Bucks get one. So we'll be targeting some Philly players against Philly for sure. Yeah. Losers time.
Yeah, let's hit losers. Go ahead.
I gotta go Chicago, man. I gotta do it. What the hell? What, another year of not making a trade? What are you doing? Do you even the guys just sit there and collect their checks? Are they making calls? I don't even get it. How does this happen? I don't get it. I don't understand that. I just don't get it. You're clearly they're reporting from Casey Johnson. Oh yeah, they're going to bring DeMar back. They're going to bring Levine back. They're going to bring obviously Vucevic sign. They're going to do it again when they're older, and you're going to have no new draft picks really to go with it. What? I'm so over it, man. How does this guy still have a job?
It's crazy.
Yeah, the Bulls remind me a lot of the Steelers right now in terms of their franchise development. They're kind of just coasting off of great franchise notoriety. Bulls fans are loyal. They had the epic run under MJ, and after Derrick Rose, they really just I feel like have been playing it safe just to try and make the back end of the playoffs. Really haven't been, making the big swings. Like the Vooch trade, not a big swing. They're kind of like the Steelers, and they need a quarterback, they need a star, but they haven't gone out and get them, and they're fine just kind of getting in the A seed, making the playoffs. Their fans are still loyal, still, they're probably still making money. They just seem completely stuck in the middle, and man, it's brutal just to see this year after year for them. So certainly a loser. I think I was going to put the 76ers in the loser category. I just don't really.
Just really quick before we change gears, this tweet just came out. The ownership would sign off on a rebuild, but Karnisovas didn't want to do it. So
that's crazy.
What are we doing? What are we doing? Just let him go, man.
Like you said, just sitting there collecting checks. Yeah. I don't want to do the work to go through the rebuild.
Man, if even Reinsdorf is willing to go to a rebuild, what? Yeah. I mean, come on. What is this guy doing? Reinsdorf of all people.
I just don't get it. Makes no sense.
Yeah, this is kind of my thoughts on the Sixers. Just with the Embiid news, I completely agree with you, Gary, and kind of hit on the same thing that the Buddy Hield trade makes a ton of sense if Joel Embiid is healthy and surrounding him with shooters. But Hield's on an expiring contract. I'm not really sure what that does for them. Obviously, they didn't give up a whole lot to get him, so you can make that argument. But it just kind of seems like a whole lot of roster shuffle for not really much addition there for the Sixers. So, with this Embiid clock ticking year after year, I'm just not really sure this is a needle moving deadline for them at all. And, it kind of put them in the losers category as a result. And then I would add Brooklyn in there as well, just for the reasons we hit earlier, just a little underwhelmed with kind of the return they've gotten on the assets they've been sitting on. And just the lack of moves, I think, is not ideal for Brooklyn in their current state.
Yeah, and then Portland not getting off Brogdon. That's a little discouraging to me.
Portland
thought Utah could have done a little more. Lakers sat on their hands, which is fine.
Utah. I was going to go Utah and Toronto for me as guys that we've spoken about that just kind of did some but could have done more. And Toronto even the the shuffling of the deck for them with Olynyk. I get bringing home Olynyk, and we're kind of all lukewarm on Agbaji at best. So, luckily they have a ton of first round picks, and it's a bad draft. So like giving up a first isn't the biggest deal in the world, especially the worst of those picks. But it's all weird moves to me. I'd rather have seen Olynyk go to a contender. So.
Yep. Yeah, I was surprised, and then I was surprised, like especially when the DeJounte tweet came out. I was like, oh, here comes the Bruce right behind it, because I thought everyone who's in on DeJounte, that was like their backup plan, and really surprising. A lot of teams could use a player like Bruce. I know he's got a big contract, but I figured something was going to work out there. So, yeah. Well, again, overall, are we losers? We didn't get like a really big. Well, Gary's not. Gary's a winner.
No, I'm not a loser.
But the other 29 NBA teams out there didn't really have like a needle moving day, which is good for the Knicks. Hey, if you move up and no one else moves up with you, that's a good day.
It's true. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, if Levine didn't opt for surgery, we could have maybe seen him get traded, although the Bulls don't do anything. But like, as far as big names, not even like a Brogdon getting moved. So yeah, you're right. I mean, nothing earth shattering today.
But we should know,
Boyan
we didn't talk about OKC being.
Gary, the disrespect for All-Star Gordon Hayward getting moved.
I wanted I didn't really give another winner besides the Knicks, but I was going to say OKC. I think Hayward makes a ton of sense for them, right?
Yeah, did we? I didn't put them on the rundown. I don't think. I don't think I put them on there. That's my bad.
We kind of hit them along with Charlotte, but we didn't really talk through the Hayward deal. So yeah, if you want to hit on that, Mike, and the fallout from there.
Yeah, I thought it was solid. We've been talking about how many assets they have here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to trouble resizing this. Man, OKC's got a lot of guys. So yeah, I thought it was fine. He's not going to play a lot of minutes. They didn't give up anything they were going to miss. We know they got a stockpile of picks. They weren't going to play Tremaine anyways. Obviously, Berton's contract was useful here. We saw them pick that up. We're like, oh, what's that for? And like, oh, you kind of put together they're going to have something big. And would you say he's the best player traded today? I mean, one of the
Hayward?
best. Him or
Hayward.
Boyan,
Hayward or Boyan probably. I mean, PJ still got some upside too.
Yeah, like peak of his career, I would say Hayward certainly the best player, but in terms of current form, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's probably Boyan who's been like excellent this year, but he's going to be 35. I mean, they're both old, so if you're taking as far as like full career arc, I mean Hayward for sure. You're right. Hayward doesn't have to play a lot. He makes a ton of sense for this team. Brings veteran leadership, playoff experience, someone that they could throw 20 minutes at hopefully, and really help them out if like, especially on the days that if they dealing with any injury stuff, but if Dort doesn't have it offensively or Wiggins or whatever. But yeah, for sure. I would have liked to see them get a 5, like a real 5, but maybe they'll get someone on the buyout market.
Oh yeah, there'll be somebody there for him. I think nobody great, but I don't think it matters, man. Like they have rebounding issues, but they don't get beat in the paint. And so they can keep teams off the boards. That's fine, but like Denver will give them a problem for sure. But I don't think there's anything they could have added that would. We saw Chet play a lot better against Joker and the most recent matchup, so I think they're all right. Adding some bench help should add. I don't think this hurts J-Dub at all. Do you guys have any concern this hurts J-Dub's outlook going forward?
No,
I don't.
How do you take him off the court? I mean,
just looking at the roster, I think I think like maybe this hurts Kaysen a little bit in terms of his
Josh Giddey
off the bench.
Hurt Josh Giddey to you?
I mean, maybe like if Hayward is healthy, I could definitely see him closing over Giddey and maybe even starting over Giddey just in terms of the shooting that he provides. And then kind of use Giddey more off the bench as like a secondary creator in the second unit or a creator in the second unit. I could see, but maybe I see it mostly coming towards like kind of like the Aaron Wiggins minutes. And obviously they traded some guys, Micic and Trey Mann, that were in the rotation every once in a while that Hayward will slot in for, but I don't know if it's a needle moving move. It's just it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for Hayward. I've pretty much had zero expectations for him, the last couple of years in Charlotte. So I think it's at least fun to get him back on a team that's competitive and will be in the playoffs, and to see him, just in a better market, I think is exciting for NBA fans and us, just in general.
Yep. And then we could talk a little buyout, I guess. Spencer Dinwiddie's a big one. I saw the Warriors were interested on him. Kyle Lowry talked about he's basically locked to Philly. Any other buyout stuff that you guys want to hit on?
Yeah, I mean, we're all wondering the same question, which is, will Arcidiacono be on another roster this season? And it's something that's really going to bother me and other Knicks. No, I'm just kidding. He'll be back the first second of the new league year in 24-25. Ryan Arcidiacono back to the Knicks.
Yeah.
No, who else got? I mean, there'll be Marcus Morris, right? Dinwiddie. I'm not really
nobody.
sure.
Morrison,
Yeah, it's really
Daniel
just
House,
Dinwiddie.
House
Dinwiddie
will
and
get
Lowry.
interest for sure. One of those guys will end
Not
up on the
much.
Lakers.
He'd just be like a bench rotation. He'd just be like a bench emergency guy.
Yeah. But they already said a bunch of contenders are interested in him. Just like
Yeah.
a capable veteran that could fill in minutes at least to close out the season. So
Yep. I think he's under that 12-point whatever, so he could go to any team. The Suns or somebody can get him.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. Probably should wrap it up to get ready for the DFS show.
Definitely. Yeah. We went over an hour here, so obviously a ton to get through, and it was a blast. Really appreciate everyone watching along with us. Such an exciting day in the NBA, even though not many massive names move, still a ton of movement and a lot for us to get excited about and talk through. So really appreciate everyone being here with us. Mike and I will be live again here in just under an hour behind the paywall at Established Sharon, talking through tonight's DFS slate. So if you want hours 2 to 3 of our voices talking today, you can hop behind the paywall and catch us there. Gary will be on, I believe, the projection sticks tonight. So he'll be behind the scenes and helping us out.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. And man, just the train keeps chugging at ETR again. I can't believe Drew decided to get married this week and leave all this fun to us. I mean, what's more fun than this? So just been an absolute blast of a day, and it's going to keep going. So again, appreciate everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a good one.